So there's a lot that I want to talk about in this book, but in total, I gave it, actually no, I'm not going to say the star rating until later. So, hi, I'm Dabby, but you can call me Dabz. So today I'm reviewing We Used to Be Friends by Amy Spalding. This book I got off of Amazon, and I did it in my book haul video, which is up, so you guys can check it out if you want. And I don't really quite know why I got the book. I feel like I just saw like the book and I read a little bit about what it was about, and I kind of was like drawn towards it because recently I've been wanting to read like a realistic fiction book for some reason. So I just felt like reading this book, so I chose to get it for my book haul. So this book is about James and Kat, and James and Kat have been best friends since kindergarten, and they were inseparable. They always talked to each other, they knew each other's secrets, they were kind of always with each other, they always hung out. And this book takes place the last year of high school, so senior year, and it is from both James and Kat's perspectives. And this story kind of follows James and Kat with both of their struggles in life and how their relationship has its ups and downs, and mostly it's about their kind of like breakup as friends, which the name suggests, we used to be friends. And yeah, it's about that. So them kind of breaking up and why that happened, and both of their sides and both their perspectives during the friend breakup, all the drama that happened, and other things in their life that were happening as this was as well. And the very interesting thing about this story, that it's not just a normal story. So, sorry, my chim. So the very interesting thing about this story is that it's not like a normal, like realistic fiction, dual perspective story. It's actually, so Kat, one of the main characters, her story goes forwards in time. So it starts from around like the beginning of senior year, and it goes forwards like a regular story does. While James's perspective, her chapters go backwards in time. So basically, I don't really know how to explain it, but it's basically like if you read James's chapters backwards, like from her last chapter to her first chapter, then that would be like how the timeline goes. So every chapter is taken place before the other. I mean, after the other. So I don't know how to explain it, but I think you understand it. So like this is one chapter, then the next chapter would be like a month before, the next chapter would be another month before. So yeah, and I'm actually going to talk about that a little later in the book review and my thoughts on that. So that's what this book's about. Bonk. So there's a lot that I want to say about this book. I have a lot of thoughts right now. So one thing in specific was that from the beginning, like 2 or 3 chapters, there were so many characters introduced. And I felt like I didn't love that much because there were so many characters introduced that I had to keep going back to figure out what is this person's relationship with James and Kat? Like, who are they? What are their personalities? And I felt like it was a lot of information that the author kind of dumped on us from the beginning. So I feel like that wasn't great. I feel like it could have been more gradual. However, I feel like all the characters were pretty like diverse in personality, especially James and Kat. And the author did a really good job of showing their personalities as characters. And one example of that is like, when I was reading the chapters, sometimes I would have to do something and I would stop in the middle of a chapter. And when I picked the book back up, I didn't get confused on like whose chapter I ended up reading, because like their personality showed in the writing, like in their perspective. So I felt like that was interesting. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the plot of the story. And while I really did enjoy like the story idea of it, I feel like the author's idea of the story with like these 2 girls who used to be like a friend breakup is really good, because I feel like in YA or just in like books in general, they don't talk about friend breakups as much. Like of course, they talk about like romantic relationships and romantic breakups and things like that. And they talk about friends. But I feel like friend breakups aren't talked about as much, and they should be, because they're such an interesting like topic to read about. So I really like the idea of this story, but I didn't love the way that like the plot went on, because I feel like it was very like repetitive. So what kept happening, in my opinion, is that like the same thing would keep happening with different scenarios, if that makes sense. Like James was withdrawn and like didn't show her feelings enough, and Kat was like selfish and didn't think about James enough. And I feel like that situation kept happening over and over, and like there was no development, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Is usually in a book there should be like steady like relationship or like character development, but I felt like in this book the characters stayed mostly the same until the end of the book, when they kind of like developed a little bit. And I didn't love that, because I wanted to see more like development in the characters. And like, so one thing that I did like about this book is the writing style. And the reason that I like the writing style is because I feel like the style of the writing, not like the topics that were discussed, but the style of it was kind of a cross between YA and middle grade. It had like a little bit of like middle grade book writing style in it. I don't know why it made me feel like that, but I just had like that kind of feeling, you know? Another thing that I liked about this book was there was LGBTQ representation in this book with Kat, and it wasn't like super overdone. It wasn't like the whole story was focusing on it, but it kind of subtly added that in, and I liked that. That was cool. So, when I started this book review, I talked about the format of this story, where Kat's perspective was going forwards in time and James's perspective was going backwards in time. And in my opinion, I felt like that didn't really do much for the story. The only thing that it kind of added was that it was just confusing. And this is because I would be like reading, and then I'd be confused, because I'd be like, didn't this already happen? So then I have to go back and like check what month it is, because every chapter the author put what month it was. And I feel like that just confused my brain of like what was happening, like how the story was flowing out, because I would have to like keep checking back to see what chapter it was, and I would forget like that it was moving backwards, and I get confused, and I just feel like that didn't do anything for me. So it's one of the reasons that I didn't like the book that much. So overall, I would rate this book 3 or 2.5. 3 or 2.5. I would rate this book 3 or 2.5 out of 5 stars. I feel like this book had a lot of potential with the story idea and the characters and the kind of marketing, I guess, of it. And like, I love the cover too. I love this, like, I love that style of art. It had a lot of potential, but I feel like the writing itself, the actual plot, and that could have been like better done. Not saying that I could do it better, but I feel like it could have been better done. And the only reason that I'm not giving this book 2 stars is because even though it was like really annoying to read with like the repetitiveness, I feel like I still enjoyed it, and I still felt like I wanted to know what was going to happen next. And I feel like me, myself, I enjoyed reading it while I was reading it, even though there were some like elements that I didn't like, if that makes sense. So that will be the end of my book review. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, then like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Happy reading! Like, if I heard about that kind of format, I would love to read it. No. What? No. Hold on. Let me restart again. Even though there are some topics in here that I guess are like, kind of, not really. They're fine, actually. I guess. Alright, let me restart.